Hey, I'm Ryan, and today I'm going to be recommending my favorite music that I discovered in the second quarter of this year, 2025. I have a playlist linked below with a sampling of songs from what I'm going to talk about today that you can go and listen to. You maybe might find a new favorite. You might even come back here and comment and let me know what maybe resonated with you. Maybe there was something that really didn't land. It is very interesting to see how different people's music tastes can be. Even looking at this list, it's amazing how different one person's music taste can be. There's a lot of, sometimes I can be a little eclectic, but hopefully there's something here that you can find that you can enjoy. Let's jump right into it though. The first one I've got is a band that I've been a big fan of actually for probably going on a decade now. Hate their name, but they have good music. This is Carpe, Diem, Moonman by the Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. And yes, despite the dumb name, I have really enjoyed a lot of what they've put out over the years. Their early albums, High Visceral, Part 1 and Part 2, still are some of my favorites. Just this heavy psych rock that really rocks out, but is kind of fun and doesn't take itself too seriously. Just a lot of really good stuff. And over the years, I feel like they kind of have never reached the heights of those early albums for me, but have still been really good. I've really enjoyed a lot of their albums. Carpe Diem Moonman is an interesting one, though. I think it is kind of one of the better ones in their discography and kind of brings some new sounds to the table. Like, there was definitely a stretch of albums they were putting out that, like, it was like you knew what you were getting, and they are good at doing these heavy, fun riffs, over all these songs. But this one definitely brings in a little bit more, a little bit of like math rock and a little bit more psychedelic, like less heavy riffing, but a little bit more atmospheric stuff. And it's actually very cool. There definitely are still some nice riffs here. I think the song I included in the playlist below is a good example of one of the heavier songs on the album. But one that I have very much enjoyed, and apparently there's another album coming from them potentially later this year. So we might be getting more from the Crumpets. But so far I've really enjoyed Carpe Diem Moonman. Next up is one from an artist that has completely kind of caught me off guard that I've been enjoying her music because it's kind of a mainstream pop that doesn't normally have a very good hit percentage with me. But I enjoyed some of Carly Rae Jepsen's newer stuff, and I went back and I have now listened to what many would say is her strongest album, and I would agree. This is Emotion by Carly Rae Jepsen. And yeah, it's not like it's bringing something really creative or progressive to the table. Like, sometimes that's what I like in music is the creativity. And a lot of times that's what hurts like pop music is, in a vacuum, maybe it sounds okay, but in a sea of music that sounds the same, it's hard to feel compelled to come back to it. But there's something here with a style of a little bit more like synth-driven dance pop that it has some fun tracks, and this one especially, of the albums I've listened of hers, is really stacked from top to bottom with a lot of really just good, catchy pop songs. So if you're into pop and somehow you didn't miss this like I did, I think this is definitely a good one to check out. Next up, we have Classic Objects by Jenny Hval, I think is how you pronounce that. So she is a Norwegian kind of art pop, I would say. Like, it definitely has some of the pop elements with kind of some of these hooks and melodies and stuff, but it's a little bit more ambient, a little bit more creative in some of the arrangements. And there's just a lot of interesting touches in the instrumentation here. And particularly a few of the songs in the album really did land for me and kind of was a unique I don't know. She's got a different sound, and I found myself really kind of enjoying some of it. I did listen to her new album, Iris Silver Mist. At least initially, I don't feel like I'm as high on that one. I probably have to give it another listen. But Classic Objects, and especially probably like a subset of 3 or 4 songs on here, I actually found to be a really good listen. Next up, we have an older album. And this is Ocean Machine by Devin Townsend. Came out in the late 90s. And for me, it definitely has this sound that I like associate with kind of late 90s, early 2000s, some of this kind of progressive metal, which isn't usually something that I I'm like fine with it. There's not a lot of it that like really grabs me to keep coming back to it. And this is maybe like still on that, in that category a little bit. I probably am not going to be coming back to this album a whole lot, but I did enjoy it. And I thought it had some, it kind of bridges that like progressive metal and pop, honestly. Like a lot of the songs here are very catchy chorus-driven songs, but still kind of this heavier rock. I could see some people really, really like this, and I mean, I know that for a fact. This is a highly rated album. There are lots of people, but I'm saying if you haven't heard this album before, there's a chance if you like kind of the heavier percussive rock, or maybe that type of kind of early 2000s sound, this may be one that you want to check out. Next, we have a very different genre. This is much more kind of singer-songwriter, stripped back, a guy and his guitar primarily. This is Every Dawn's a Mountain by Tamino. And it's almost reminiscent. He's got a very unique style, kind of this sultry lower voice. It almost reminds me of something like Leonard Cohen, or just kind of this like, just guy in his guitar, very poetic. But man, he's got some range too. There's some tracks here where, I mean, he really can go into the stratosphere, and it really is impactful, right? And so with some of it's got a lot of kind of lush builds with the strings and instrumentation around the guitar. And his voice is just a really, it's got a character to it that kind of really draws you in. So I've really enjoyed this one, and I actually, since putting this list together, have listened to both of his other albums as well. This is his most recent album, and he's got a lot of really strong stuff. I don't know that he's super popular, but I definitely would encourage giving this a listen. He's also got a bit of this like, he's got an interesting background, I think. I think he's Belgian Egyptian is kind of his heritage, but then his music definitely has this like Arabic edge to it, like with some of the melodies and some of those kind of sliding in between the notes. And I think it gives it just some more nice character here without like overdoing it to a point where it's maybe abrasive to my Western ears. So really, really have enjoyed this album. I think it's really good stuff. Next up, we have Magic Alive by McKinley Dixon. And I tell you, I will regularly listen to highly rated albums that are in genres that I don't normally enjoy. And that for most of the time means I'm listening to albums that I don't like. But occasionally, I will find something like this where, despite me generally not enjoying most rap, and like I keep trying. I've listened to a lot of the highly rated ones. Not many of them land for me. But now I've got one like this that honestly might be one of my front runners for like my top album of the year. This is really, really cool stuff that manages to avoid a lot of maybe what turns me off from rap, which might be like repetitive, boring instrumentation. It might be just really vulgar lyrics, where this is kind of a jazz rap, which that already kind of piques my interest because I like kind of like jazz elements. But the band here is so, for lack of a better word, alive. Like you feel the energy of the live music here, and it's very dynamic and it's not repetitive. There's so many interesting things going on here besides just the rapping. But then I actually find that, the way that McKinley Dixon has his flows over this, it just really comes together nicely. So yeah, kind of blown away by this one. And it's the reminder to me of, this is why I do it. It's worth it to me to go through a bunch of stuff I, don't enjoy as much, to find something that isn't what I would normally necessarily listen to, but I really, really enjoy. So definitely, I would say worth a look, whether you consider yourself a fan of rap or not. Next up, we have Expert in a Dying Field by the Beths. This is a very kind of straightforward indie power pop sound, but it's just done really well. Like it is really well polished. And while the whole album didn't, blow me away, and I don't really see myself coming back to it, the title track here I did like quite a bit, and I think is just a very well executed track within kind of this power pop genre, enough so that I do plan on listening to more of their discography, and I think they do have another album coming out here this year. I think quite soon, actually. I don't know when this video is going to be posting, but as me sitting here, it might be out by the time you're watching this. Next up, we have, I believe this is Saya by Saya Gray. Might not be pronouncing that right. This is a really cool stylistic pop album, where it's still like grounded in like, kind of the catchiness of pop, but there's a lot of instrumentally like experimentation in the instruments, like just a sprinkle of kind of glitchy stuff, like glitchy. A lot of once an album is starting to be categorized in the genre of like glitch pop, it tends to not really be my style anymore. It just is a little bit too kind of abrasive for me. But a lot of really cool stuff here, and kind of the way the vocal style, I don't know, it's very hard to explain, but the more I've listened to it, the more I've liked it. It just feels really, really fresh. It's a cool project, and it's a debut album, I think. I could be wrong there. But impressive stuff, and definitely one that puts her on my radar here moving forward. Next, we have an EP. This is just a short EP called It's All Feast or Famine by Touchdown Jesus. This is kind of a funny one. It's a little bit of a combination of genres. It's definitely got this like progressive rock, a little bit of maybe a touch of math rock, or metal, but it's got kind of this, I don't know if you would call the post-hardcore style with like the vocals. It's got the quirky element to it. Like I would say that you might get from some post-hardcore bands, or like maybe even something like I don't know, Talking Heads is coming to mind for me, of just that little bit of a quirky edge. But this had some fun kind of rocking energy to it. It's not something that blew me away, though. It certainly put this band on my radar. And I won't lie, the song I Love My Wife gets stuck in my head. And I think it's both funny and very, very catchy. So yeah, I am glad I ran across, I think they're a pretty small band, but I enjoyed this EP from them. Next up, we have The Congregation by Leprous. Now, Leprous is one of the few, I would say, modern progressive rock metal bands that have kind of landed for me more. Now, part of that is it's not going into kind of the screamo vocals, at least not much. There's a little bit here. Like it's mostly the type of vocals that I still enjoy. And I really, really like their album Bilateral. That's definitely my favorite and remains my favorite, but I've been kind of going through some more of their albums. And I thought The Congregation was also very strong overall. It's not short, but it really continues to demonstrate a lot of what makes Leprous interesting. They've got a very interesting style of lots of very syncopated, interesting, complex rhythms. I will say some of their later material starts to feel almost too much, or like it's maybe not serving the song as much as they just were like, let's see if we can do this crazy, syncopated thing here. And so maybe not quite as cohesive as I feel like some of it is in Bilateral, for example, but still very good stuff if you enjoy metal, and specifically kind of the more progressive metal that doesn't have kind of the screaming, harsh vocals. I can definitely recommend checking out this as well as more of Leprous's music. Next we have It Is Always Hard to follow up one of my favorite albums of all time. And this is Cancionera by Natalia Lafourcade. I absolutely love her album De Todas las Flores. That it has been one of the biggest shocks in recent years. In one, like before I listened to it, I honestly wasn't listening to much non-English music, but I was starting to be more willing to branch out more. But that has just slowly, it went from like, ooh, this is kind of intriguing. I kind of liked this to I mean, it is really one of my all-time favorites now. So how do you follow that up? And the answer is she followed it up quite well. It definitely doesn't. It's the regression to the mean. You only really could go backwards from the highs for my taste that De Todas las Flores brought. But I thought Cancionera overall has a lot of strong tracks, a lot of what I really still like about her style, and just the really tasteful musicianship of the groups that she brings together. And it's actually very amazing on this particular album. If I understand correctly, the entire more than hour album was recorded live in a single take, but it sounds like a studio album. I mean, it doesn't sound like, it's very impressive that they were able to pull that off. And so, I can still definitely recommend this. It's always with that caveat of it doesn't live in a vacuum. It lives in a world where it's following up an album that I think is a few steps stronger, but still very good stuff, and love what Natalia is doing here. Next, we have Out There by Hiromi with her band Sonicwonder. So Hiromi is a Japanese, very virtuistic jazz pianist. And this is kind of a cool modern jazz fusion band that she has. So you've got drums and bass and stuff, and it's very I don't want to say over the top, but it's very virtuosic with the playing and the soloing. But it's also very fun. This is not an album that takes itself too seriously. I mean, I especially think of the second song, Yes Ramen. That's, very on the nose kind of this Asian sounding riff, and but then even in the same song has these beautiful segments of, soloing and piano. And so there's just a lot I really liked about this. A lot of times these kind of instrumental jazz fusion albums, they're like good for a listen. And like, I don't often find myself drawn back to this, but this one has stayed in rotation for me. And it's really cool. I haven't listened to any of Hiromi's other stuff. I think she has one other album with this Sonicwonder band. So I'll definitely be checking that out. But a very, good instrumental listen if you're into kind of this jazz fusion. And lastly, we have a goofy recommendation. This is Viagr Aboys by the Viagra Boys. This is, I believe, their third or fourth album. And I had listened to their album Cave World. Overall had liked it. They're going to be a polarizing band. It's definitely, they've got a very distinct style. It's kind of this like dance punk rock, but very quirky with the lyrics and the delivery of the vocals. And so, I think you can listen to a little bit of a song and you'll probably have a pretty good idea of whether you're in the love or hate it crowd here. But I do think this new effort by them on this album is strong. I don't know if it might be as good, if maybe a little better than Cave World, in my opinion. Some fun tracks here. It's goofy stuff. So I thought I'd include it because it is one of those things that certain people I think will absolutely love this. I think others will despise it. But that's why you go listen to the Spotify playlist below so you can find that out for yourself.